What it do, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am so excited to talk to you about books. It doesn't happen very often on my channel that I talk about books, but after you guys' recent feedback when it comes to additional things to add to my membership, I thought I would just give you guys at least a little glimpse into a variety of books that I'm interested in reading in the future. I do plan to update my membership talking about potentially a book club. I'm just trying to get the all of the background stuff established, and then that will be made public for you guys along with some of the other recommendations. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will see if I can somehow link that particular community post down below. If not, please go over to my community page on my channel and check out that survey and vote, because that will be very helpful for me and potentially for you if that's something that you're interested in seeing from me. So let's just go ahead and dive on in. I don't want this to be too long. Alrighty, so first things first, as always, if you are interested in my makeup look that was recorded, specifically the eye tutorial, and that will be coming up very soon. It is the first look in a 3 looks 1 palette that I am doing with the Cosmic Brushes Neutrals palette. So that will be linked down below when it becomes available, as well as all of the stuff on my face will be listed and linked down below. So let's dive on in. I have 2 kind of general groups, if you will. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about 10 different books, and I think I unintentionally grouped it with 5 romance and 5 non-romance. If you did not know, for me, when it comes to my reading, romances are easy reads for me, so I can just binge a romance without even trying, whereas some other kind of sci-fi, fantasy, it is thundering really badly right now. Sci-fi, fantasy, all of that, it takes me a little while because you got to think. You got to remember names. You got to do all this. Generally with romances, you only got to remember 2 names and you can kind of get through. So that's typically why I read a majority of romance, because depending on what's going on in my personal life or my work life, whatever, I just don't have the brain cells to dedicate to reading more complex books. But I am hopeful that with this new start, new beginnings, I can read more of my sci-fi fantasies, all of that, because I do enjoy them. And there's so many on my unread bookshelf right now that I really want to get through those babies. So let's dive into the romances first, and then we will go into my non-romance books. A lot of these romances, particularly in this grouping, I want to read them because I don't think that I'm going to want to keep them. I tend to keep books that I think I'm going to reread, and although I know a majority of people do not reread their books, I do. When it comes to my physical books that are not special edition, I want to kind of get those read, hopefully before my next move, which is quite some time, but still, you gotta start now, because I don't want to move with books that I'm not happy with. So anyways, digress. First things first, the book is Life's Too Short by Abby Jemison. If memory serves me correctly, this is in a trilogy, or a not in the sense that like all of the characters connect, but in the sense that like she grouped them together for some reason. Maybe like they're in the same city or something to that effect. That's typically why, yeah. So the Happily Ever After playlist and the Friend Zone, and I read both of those books. I believe this is the last book in that kind of grouping, and I just got it later because I didn't realize that this was like a book that was in that trilogy. I just want to read it. It's not a very long read at all. Let's see. It looks like it's a little under 350 pages, and I've read those other 2 books as I stated just now, and those books didn't take me but a day to get through once I got into it. So I definitely think that this is something that I could easily read. I'll probably actually try to read at least one of these this weekend, because I'm currently in my weekend for my job. And these are, like I said, easy binge reads. I can get them done and I'll feel some form of accomplishment. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Life's Too Short. The next book, I honestly didn't have any real intentions of reading this one, but I realized that this was the first book in a trilogy, or at least in a duology at that time, and I wanted to read the second book because that's from one of my favorite authors. I do enjoy this author, but I had no intentions of really reading this originally. Anyways, this is Julie Murphy's If the Shoe Fits, and if you are very familiar with my channel, you know how long this book has been with me because I bought this in a vlog. I still haven't read it. I haven't read it, but I really want to read the second book in this series, which is the Meant to Be series. So yeah, and if you didn't understand, this series is not really based on one author. It's multiple different authors kind of talking, I guess, about their romance. Wait, what? It's multiple different authors showcasing a romance, and I guess they're all pieced together. I haven't read any books in the series, so I don't know how they're pieced together, but it might just be kind of a published version of what a lot of like Kindle authors do, where they just put together books with a very loose, similar theme. And I'm under the impression that that's how this series is. So hopefully I can get to this one so I can get to the one that I really actually wanted to read. And once again, I think this is one of those ones that I'm not going to keep, but you know, might as well read it and see if I want to keep it. One that I truly don't know why I haven't read this. I really, really don't. This is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. I love all of her books that I've read. I read the other two books in this series. Once again, this is the last book in this series. And as soon as I picked it up, I'm like, okay, you're going to read it and then you'll be done. That was easily 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it's been sitting on my unread bookshelf. It needs to go. It's another book that I know I can easily get through. I think this is another under 350 pages. This is easily one day's read for me. So I need to read it. I need to read it. I want to read it. It's now on this list and it shall be read. The next book, which is another one that I easily don't think I'll keep. I'll probably keep the Helen Huang because I love all of her books and I've kept all of the ones that I've read. But this one I definitely don't think I'm going to keep. And this is Well Met. This is a book by Jen DeLuca, and really I have no reference on this author's writing or anything like that. This was when I was still actively a subscriber for Book of the Month. I no longer am. I haven't been for years, and that's worked for me. I buy enough books that I don't technically need Book of the Month to bring me a new book each month. But this was the only romance I believe that month, or the only book that I was somewhat okay with choosing, if you will, and I wasn't really interested in it because like I said, I don't know the author. I believe this sets in like a Renaissance fair, but that's all I know. I have no context as to, you know, intrigue on this, and that's probably why I haven't picked it up, because I'm not invested to any extent, whereas at least the other three that I've mentioned, I'm invested to some extent, and something has just held me up from picking them up. Mainly, I've just been really avidly Kindle reading lately that I haven't used any of my physical books as a reading source, but that is going to be changing, hopefully, very, very soon. And then the last romance, I'm pretty confident is going to be one of the first books that I read with my book club. So I'm giving you guys a sneak peek, if you will. And this is Fortuna Sworn. This is by J.K. Sutton, and this, from what I read or I've heard, is very steamy, very interesting, and I have on very good authority that I'm going to enjoy it. I used to be very avidly watcher. What is going on with my vocabulary today? I used to be a very avid watcher of BookTube. I had a BookTube channel. I haven't published on that in some years now, but regardless, one of my favorite BookTubers at that time, and still to this day, I just don't avidly watch their channel right now, loved this series. They were sent the book, they read it, they binged it, and they pretty much, I feel, put this author on the map. And this became a special edition copy of one of my favorite kind of special edition copy publishers, if you will. And so I had to splurge. I splurged, I picked it up, and now I have to read it and have to hope that my good intentions are really going to be good. So I'm really excited for this book, and that's why I'm holding it out for the book club, because I really wanted to be really excited for the first book potentially. And I say that because my book club is going to be a little bit different than others. So anyways, I'm really excited and hopeful. I just need to do some of the logistics behind the scenes to make sure that it works hopefully seamlessly, and it's interesting for you guys. So yeah, Fortuna Swan is going to be a potential first book. So maybe if you're interested and you are a romance reader, look into it. Hopefully I can get the book club off the ground starting for August. So I'll probably reveal it sometime later this month so that you have the time to pick up whatever book you want. And that's as much more sneak peek as I'm going to give you guys. Okay. Now, like I said, I have 5 non-romance books to talk about, and these are in absolutely no particular order. So first is actually the second book in a series. I already started this series and I loved the first book, but I didn't have the second book at the time. I know I read this during COVID. So once again, that time stamps how long this book has been in my collection. And this is The Caged Queen. This is like a dragon fantasy dragon fantasy book. I do believe if this was in a library setting, this is young adult. So if you're a fantasy reader, I know that is very important. This is, I would say, young adult, if not even a new young adult in that age bracket. And yeah, I think that this is going to be another one that I'm going to be avidly excited to read. And that's really where these 10 books came from. I really wanted to pick books that I'm avidly interested in and books that are super old to just clean up my bookshelf, because this is looking overstuffed right now, at least my unread bookshelf. Next is a book that I picked up. Okay. At the time of this being published, I was still working in the library. I have this not only in a physical copy, I have it in an electronic copy as well. I need to read this book. I need to read this book. This is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This author has now come out with at least one other additional book. I hear nothing but great things. I need to read this book. From what I know, this follows, and the reason I didn't give you guys synopsis for the other ones is because I truly don't have a synopsis, but from what I know for this one, it follows a social worker that basically they are social worker dedicated towards magical children, from what I can tell. So I'm excited. I just haven't read it. I have it in 2 copies. Haven't read it. Another book that, why did I have this? Oh, one of my coworkers at the time, she wanted to do a buddy read. And if you don't know what a buddy read, it quite literally is what it sounds. So it's when you and a buddy read a book. Sometimes you're very structured and you say, we're going to read this and we're going to finish it by this time. And sometimes it's very loosely structured. Whenever you finish it, then we'll discuss it. I want to say that this was a very loosely structured buddy read, and she should not have done that with me. So I've already started it. As you can see, there are 2 different bookmarks, and I haven't worked for this organization in 3-4 years, and she left them before me, and we never did discuss this book. But this is Ninth House by Leah Bardugo. I'm pretty sure she's released at least one other book. I believe this was ultimately a duology. Leah Bardugo, if you did not know, tends to do a lot of duologies and a lot of trilogies. And so, yeah. Hopefully I can get through this book. I know I have to reread this from the beginning. I wasn't a huge fan while I was reading it. So this is definitely going to be a tougher read out of all of these for me. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. The last 2 are chonkers, okay? They're chonkers. They are big books, but they are very famously big books. One is the last in the trilogy. Are you getting a theme here. I tend to read a majority of trilogies and duologies, and then I just don't finish them. But we're gonna change that in 2024. So anyways, the last one is that this one is actually the first of duology I have both. Once again, special edition copies. Seeing a theme. I love me some special edition copies of some books. And since this was a popular series and I knew I really wanted to read it, I figured let's just get the special edition copy and have something to really look forward to while we're reading. So this is The Priory of the Orange Tree. And this is, of course, by Samantha Shannon. Recently, of course, she released her second book in this series, and that's why this one got its special edition copy. Once again, by one of those favorite publishers that I love to support. I get a lot of special edition copies from various ones. This one happened to be from Illumicrate, in case you were interested. So yeah, I don't really know much about this. I know that it's something to do with dragons. I believe people always say that there's some sapphic romance in this as well. I have no context, none. But I want to read it. I want to read it. I just can't sit down long enough when it comes to that book. So I'm going to start it. This is the series. This is going to keep me on the momentum to read these books. It is. I promised myself it is. And then the last book, the 10th book that I want to read out of like my top 10 books that I want to read very, very soon is this baby. And this is Obsidio, and this is the last book in the Illuminae files. If you don't know, the Illuminae files are published by two authors, Jay Kristoff and Ami Kaufman. I don't actually have any context by her writing other than these series, but I have read quite a bit of Jay Kristoff, and I know Jay Kristoff is a little controversial, but I was already in the middle of reading this series. Anyways, I've started to read this book twice now, and I haven't gotten very far, but at least this last time has been since I've lived here. So I'm very hopeful that I will actually get through this one. This, if you did not know, this series is multimedia. I believe it's very unique. I've not heard of any other books being that way, but pretty much you have literally multimedia in here, where some pages it looks like an actual book, some pages it looks like that. It is very, very interesting way of presenting this information. And Obsidio is uniquely, I believe, the only fantasy, and not fantasy, I'm sorry, sci-fi in this list. Everything else is somewhat fantasy focused, but this is the only sci-fi book in this list. So yeah, that'll give me some refreshing kind of mental change, if you will, when it comes to reading. I'm very much a mood reader, so I can't say that these are going to be the first 10 books that I read in this house, but these are some of the top books that I really, really want to get to. So yeah. This is a little bit chaotic. This is a different side of me than you guys have seen in quite some time, because I don't talk about books a lot. But I would love to hear if there's a particular book that I've showcased that you are interested in, that you've read, that you would recommend I start with. Definitely let me know down below. Who knows, maybe I will revive my book YouTube channel. Who knows? I don't know. I'm busy right now, maybe in the future. But for now, these are some books that I'm interested in. These are some books that I hope to read very, very soon. And I would love to hear your opinions. And that, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.